Hi, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of Dating a Widower, and this is the third, and I still might do another part, but this is the third part series in Dating a Widower with adult children. Today we're going to discuss really what it comes to, we're going to discuss family events, how adult children sometimes act at family events. We're going to discuss not being welcome in the adult children's home. And the fact that kids act like jerks, like they won't be in the same room with you at family events. And we're also going to talk about family traditions and what should or should not continue after the widower has entered into a serious relationship or has gotten married again. So to start this off, we're going to talk about family events. It seems like if there's one thing out there that causes lots of problems, it's family events. And you'd think that family events are a time where people would get together and be happy and just, to hang around each other. I know I personally like family events. I know my wife's family, Julie's family, they try to do a family event every month. My family's a little more spread out. We don't get to do them as often, but I do enjoy going up to see my parents and spending time with them. Problems come, however, is when the widower wants to bring his new girlfriend, his new wife, and the problems that causes. So it seems the issue I see from the girlfriend or wife side of things is they don't necessarily mind these events, but the big issue seems to be is that they don't feel welcome at these events. So they might show up to these events and maybe there's one person, maybe there's a lot of people that are just kind of not happy that the widower is dating again or is remarried, and so they do what it takes to make that person's life miserable. And it could just be that they just ignore them, they won't talk to them, maybe they won't be in the same room with them. It could even be that they don't even invite, that they say, hey, we're having whatever, a family dinner or a family party, why don't you come over? And the emphasis is that you need to come alone. How dare you bring this new woman into our life or our party? So a couple of thoughts on this is that if you're serious with someone, especially if you're married to them, but if you're in a serious relationship with someone, most of the time, I don't think it's fair for someone, especially if they know about this, if they know about your new girlfriend or something like that, I don't think it's fair for someone just to invite you. Now, there are maybe very limited minor circumstances where that might be appropriate, but if we're talking general family gatherings, family events where pretty much anybody in the family is welcome, I don't think it's right, first of all, for them to invite the widower but not invite his girlfriend or wife. Absolutely wrong. I think that invitation needs to be there. It needs to be open. It's something. It's just rude otherwise. And if you're inviting with the, I mean, come on, think about it. Why would you just invite the one person if you're just trying to cause trouble? Don't do this. But anyway, if that happens, the widower needs to stand up and say, well, what about so-and-so? Is she invited? Again, it all comes back to the widower being a parent, being a man, being whatever you want to call it, depending on the relationship with the person that's throwing the party. I think it's fully within the person's right to say, hey, what about so-and-so? Is she invited? And it could just be an innocent overlook. But if not, if they say, well, she's not invited, then in my opinion, the widower should say, well, I can't come. I'm sorry about that. Again, it comes with being it comes with the widower should make this woman the serious girlfriend of the wife, number one in his life. And if he's going to events where he knows that you have been purposely not invited, he's basically telling people, well, she's not number one. That's the message that they're sending. And if you're a woman and you're putting up with this, you're telling the widower that it's okay if you're not invited. And I know there may be times you don't want to go, and I'll cover that in a minute. But really, it comes down to there needs to be that expectation set that the serious girlfriend of the wife is number one in the widower's life, and that there's really not an excuse not to have this person invited. For a whole host of reasons. But basically, if you're serious about each other, you at least need to be invited. That doesn't mean that the new wife, the new girlfriend, or the serious girlfriend has to come. That doesn't mean that. But there should be an expectation that if he shows up, it's cool. Now, oftentimes I'll have people say, well, I show up to these events, okay, whatever, they get over the invite issue, or they're invited, but it's very obvious that they're not welcome there. It could be that people are standoffish, that, and maybe at first they're just trying to get to know you, and it's just kind of a weird dynamic to see dad or my uncle or whoever with a new woman. There could be a lot of that at first, but maybe after going over to a couple of these activities, it becomes very apparent that you're not welcome there, and it could be that people just ignore you. It could be that I've heard cases where where the widower's kids, they won't even be in the same room. They'll purposely jump rooms and avoid rooms just to kind of send a message. So here's my advice if you find yourself in this situation. I think, especially if this is an ongoing event, I think you should at least try to make it work. It could be, there has to be someone at the party that you can talk to and be with, and it could just be after a couple of drinks or whatever, or something. People are fine. Maybe it takes a little bit for people to warm up. I think first of all, at least you should try to at least be kind, be polite, see if you can make friends with people. Now, if this behavior goes on a lot, first of all, let the widower know about it. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and I say, well, what does the widower say about this behavior? And it's like, well, I haven't told them. Well, no. You go out there, you talk to the widower, you tell him how one of his kids, or I don't know, his aunt, or whoever's causing the problem, you have to let him know. Because then I think it falls under the obligation of the widower to say, look, what's going on? I'm talking to my wife, I'm talking to my girlfriend, and she says she gets to the party, gets a bad vibe. And, again, maybe there is a bad vibe there, maybe there's not. But I think it comes to that, where the widower needs to maybe address that and see if the problem can be solved. Now, if the problem can't be solved, if the person says, well, I'm not a fan of you remarrying, or your wife or girlfriend is a jerk, okay, I think at that point you are fine not going to these events ever again if they're going to act like that. But I think the widower is also under an obligation to decide if he needs to go all the time. I get questions all the time. Well, when is it okay for the widower to go to one of these events? Go to family events alone? And I guess it's fine as often as you both think it's okay. Again, just because you're invited doesn't mean you have to come, but I think there should at least be that expectation that you're invited and that you're welcome. And if you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason, because people are being jerks, that's fine. I don't think you're under any obligation to go to these events. But at the same time, I think you at least need to give it a try and see if you can at least make the best out of the situation. Now, maybe because he's remarried and things have changed, he doesn't necessarily have to go to all the events either. It could just be like, hey, you know what? We've got other plans. We can't make it tonight. Thanks for inviting us. We'll try to make it to the next one. I think there's probably a more serious problem if the widower keeps going alone. And the tenor is that nothing has changed at these events, and you're still not welcome, and he's still showing up at these events, because I think at that point he's pretty much telling people that, hey, it's okay that you treated my wife or my girlfriend this way, and I'm still going to show up at your party, kind of thing. People can really be jerks sometimes, can't they? So anyway. So I think that's good. That's kind of the obligation when it comes to maybe these family events or parties or things like that is, go there, tough it out a couple of times, see if you can make friends. If not, have the widower go back, talk to him, see if there's maybe just some kind of misunderstanding. But then, if all that's been done, I don't think you're under any obligation to go to the events, and I think that the widower should probably curtail a lot of his participation in these events. Now, something I hear about, doesn't happen often, but I do hear about how the new woman is not welcome in their kid's home, and where it's just basically like, yeah, Dad, you can show up, but you're not to bring your girlfriend, you're not to bring your wife. And I don't know how these kids became to be such jerks. I mean, my guess is that they're probably still grieving, and they're still having a hard time with the fact that they've lost their mom, and now Dad's kind of moving on, and they're not moving on. But I'm sorry, that behavior is completely unacceptable all the way around. And this is where the widower again needs to man up and say, look, again, how this conversation goes with the kids, the details and the best way to approach is probably up to the widower, but he needs to stand up for you. And too often, widowers aren't standing up for you because they're putting the feeling of their kids over your feelings. And again, I'm sorry, we're talking about adult kids here, and you need to be number one. You need to be the center of the universe, not some kid who has hurt feelings. I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, it's just like you wouldn't tolerate a 3-year-old screaming and, hey, I don't want to go to bed. You're hurting my feelings, kind of thing. It's the exact same thing. So there needs to be the expectation set that, hey, when I come over, hey, I'll be bringing so and so. I mean, of course, it may not work out all the time, but she needs to feel that she's invited and that she's part of the family. And I'm sorry, but excluding people just because they fell in love with your dad is stupid. And I'm talking about widowed. I'm not talking about a mistress or anything like that. In which case, yeah, go ahead and exclude them. So really, it just comes down to, it comes down to common decency here. If there's any kids of widowed, whose widowed dad is dating again, I'd tell you right now that he still loves your mom, and this new person that he's dating or marrying, it doesn't mean that he doesn't love her, but he's just opening a new chapter in his life, and give her a chance. Really, just give her a chance. Invite her over, get to know her. It might be that you guys have a lot in common. It might be that you have nothing in common, but give her a chance and see if you can make the best of it. Is it really worth ruining or possibly ruining your relationship with your dad over the fact that he wants to date again and remarry? Really, is that totally worth it? Is that worth the cost? I don't know. Anyway, and again, to women who find themselves in this spot, at first make the best of it. But at some point, if they're just being intolerable and being jerks about everything, again, I don't think you have to go to any of these family parties. But to the widowers who find themselves maybe kind of stuck between jerk kids and the fact that you have a wife or girlfriend that doesn't want to go to these activities, I think there's a lot of growing up to do. That needs to be done. This is the chance for you to to stand up and be a dad, and stand up and be a husband, and say, look, this is silly. Bring the family together. I don't know if you have family meetings or if you've ever had that habit, but maybe invite the kids over one evening and lay it out on the table for them. Say, this isn't acceptable. Let me tell you a story here, because again, I think a lot of times maybe the kids don't see it. So about 10 years ago, I was new at a job, and I was actually meeting with the owner of the company about some project, and we just started talking, and I asked him what he was doing that weekend, if he had any fun plans, and he says, well, my dad's getting remarried. And he kind of said it like this. He's like, well, my dad's getting remarried. And I'm just kind of, I didn't know anything about this guy's personal life or his dad, and I just said, oh, you're not a fan of of his new wife. And he's like, no, that's not it. He goes, she's okay. It's just that, my mom died. I think it was like 14 months ago or something like that. It was about a year, and I'm just having a hard time seeing my dad with someone else. And he didn't know much about me because, again, I was a new employee, and I just kind of looked at him and said, well, I remarried 15 months after my wife died, and I just kind of like, wait a minute, how old are you? I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s at that point. Anyway, so we ended up having this conversation, and I just kind of explained to him that your dad still loves your mom, and don't take his remarrying personally. He just wants to be with someone, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it was several months later, I was talking again to the owner of the company, and he personally thanked me for kind of sharing my story and for doing that. And he mentioned how grateful he was because he was able to give his stepmom, I guess, a second chance, and really found out she was a great woman, and it was really great for his dad. And he was grateful that he had that opportunity to maybe kind of put aside the feelings that he had and get to know her. And anyway, So I'm just asking that maybe you take that opportunity too, and maybe give this new woman a chance. Give your stepmom a chance and make her part of the family. I mean, honestly, unless your dad was cheating on her when your mom was married, I don't see a reason for the hostility. I would honestly look at your dad at this. Is he happier now? Is he doing better? I mean, would you rather have him moping around the house and being miserable? I mean, I guess I don't understand what the alternative is here. And again, you don't necessarily have to love your stepmom. You don't have to embrace her. But I mean, is it really too much to ask you to give her a chance and just try to make her at least feel like a welcome part of the family? I'm not saying it's easy, and maybe you guys are just the kind of personalities where for whatever reason you don't click, and that happens. But at least give them a chance to kind of prove if the stepmom's going to be a jerk, then give her a chance to prove that she's a jerk. But yeah. Anyway, I hope this has helped. I hope that family events aren't a big problem anymore. I hope that this has maybe given you some food for thought. So as your next family event's coming up, whether you're dating a widower, the wife of a widower, the widower, or the widower's kids, that maybe you can make this next event something that's going to be happy and fun for everybody. I'm Abel Keogh, author of Dating a Widower. Don't forget to subscribe. Got another video for you to watch down here. Go ahead and enjoy them, and I'll see you next Wednesday.